Hand over that purse and crawl back to your fancy life before I break those posh little hands." Ghost snarled, stepping into the glow of a dying streetlight as his crew fanned out behind him. The gang moved like shadows through Brookhaven's forgotten streets, laughter echoing off boarded windows and cracked pavement. They saw her, a lone black woman walking home, purse in hand, an easy target for a late-night rob. What they didn't know was that the woman they were about to jump wasn't just anyone. She was Chief Amara Reed, the city's first black chief of police, and when he reached for her purse, the streets chose a side. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. The streetlights cast long shadows across the empty sidewalks of Brookhaven. One by one, porch lights winked out as residents settled in for the night. The summer heat lingered, thick and oppressive, making Amara's navy trench coat feel heavier than usual. She adjusted the purse strap on her shoulder, her mind already racing through tomorrow's city council agenda. The meeting would be contentious. It always was these days. A car engine growled behind her, slowing to a crawl. Amara's cop instincts kicked in immediately. The vehicle's headlights stretched her shadow ahead of her, making her an easy target. 3 doors opened and closed in quick succession. Footsteps scraped against concrete. Amara didn't need to turn around to know they were following her. She kept her pace steady, listening to their approach. Their footfalls were deliberate, unhurried, the walk of men who thought they had all the time in the world. "Hey, lady!" a voice called out. "Nice night for a walk." Amara turned slowly. 3 men spread out before her, blocking her path. The one in the middle wore a white tank top that showed off heavily tattooed arms. Even in the dim light, she could make out the intricate designs crawling up his biceps. His eyes held a mocking confidence that made her blood boil. "Hand over the purse," Tank Top said, holding out his hand. "Make it easy on yourself." Amara tightened her grip on the strap. "I don't think so." The man to Tank Top's left stepped forward, his face twisted in an ugly sneer. "Wasn't a request." He shoved her hard, expecting her to stumble. Instead, Amara moved with the push, using the momentum to drive her elbow into Tank Top's ribs. He grunted in surprise and pain. For a split second, she saw uncertainty flicker across his face. This wasn't going according to plan. Then everything exploded into motion. The third man lunged, grabbing for her purse. Amara pivoted, bringing her knee up into his stomach. He doubled over, but Tank Top was already on her, his fist connecting with her mouth. The taste of copper flooded her tongue as her lips split. They crashed together onto the sidewalk. Concrete scraped against her palms as she caught herself. A hand wrapped around her throat. She struck backwards with her elbow, feeling cartilage crunch. Someone cursed. The purse strap dug into her shoulder as they pulled, the nylon cutting into her skin. Amara drove her knee up, catching Tank Top in the gut. He wheezed, but didn't let go. His partners grabbed at her arms, trying to pin her down. She twisted violently, breaking one hold only to have another set of hands replace it. Their breath came in harsh pants, mixing with the sounds of scuffling feet and muttered curses. The purse strap finally snapped with a sharp crack. Amara's shoulder jerked painfully as they yanked it away. A sudden flood of light made them all freeze. Mrs. Lang's porch light had clicked on, bright as a spotlight. The subtle red glow of a Ring camera blinked to life in the doorframe. "Hey!" Mrs. Lang's quavering voice carried across her front yard. "What's going on out there?" The men scattered like roaches. Tank Top clutched the purse to his chest as they sprinted back to their car. Amara pushed herself to her feet, tasting blood from her split lip. She watched their taillights disappear around the corner, her chest heaving with exertion and rage. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached into her coat cuff, finding the small transmitter hidden there. One tap sent the last 60 seconds of audio to Detective Morales, along with her GPS coordinates. Another tap would track her purse's location. "Got you," she muttered, her voice rough from the choking grip they'd had on her throat. She limped over to where the broken purse strap lay on the sidewalk. Carefully, she pulled a tiny ceramic tracker from a hidden pocket in her coat. Her fingers worked quickly, sliding the device into the torn edge of the strap. Let them think they'd won. Let them think they'd just robbed another helpless woman walking alone at night. The concrete had torn her pantyhose and scraped her knees. Her shoulder ached where they'd yanked the purse away. But Amara smiled as she picked up the broken strap, even though it made her split lip sting. They'd find out soon enough just who they'd attacked tonight. Right now, the most important thing was making sure they led her straight back to whoever was pulling their strings. The night air felt electric with possibilities as she straightened her coat and began the slow walk home. Each step sent little jolts of pain through her body, but she barely noticed. Her mind was already racing ahead, plotting out the next moves in this dangerous game. They thought they'd caught easy prey tonight. Instead, they'd walked right into a trap they'd never seen coming. Mrs. Lang's porch light still blazed, a silent witness to the violence that had erupted on her quiet suburban street. The Ring camera's red light blinked steadily, recording everything. In the distance, a dog barked, the sound echoing through the otherwise silent neighborhood. Amara leaned against Pops Carter's hardware store wall, her breathing finally steady. The old man pressed a clean white towel into her hands, concern etched deep in the lines of his weathered face. Several porch lights had clicked on after the commotion, casting pools of yellow light across the sidewalk. "Let me see that lip, Chief." Pops caught himself, glancing around quickly before lowering his voice. "Miss Reed." She dabbed at her split lip, the white towel coming away spotted with red. "It's nothing serious, Pops. Just a scratch. Don't you just a scratch me." He crossed his arms, his work-worn hands gripping his elbows. "I heard the whole thing from inside. Sounded like a real scrap out here. Could have been worse." Amara pressed the towel against her lip again, wincing slightly. Pops shook his head, his expression grim. "Folks been testing people lately. Especially after dark. Especially—" He trailed off, but his meaning was clear. "Especially people who looked like them." "I've noticed." Amara's voice was carefully neutral, but her eyes were sharp. "Any particular pattern to these tests?" "Always the same streets. Always the same kind of folks getting hassled." Pops leaned in closer, speaking softly despite the empty sidewalk. "Mrs. Johnson down on Maple got pushed around last week. Week before that, it was the Williams family. Both of them got cash offers on their houses the very next day." Amara's fingers tightened on the bloodied towel. "Interesting timing. Ain't it, though?" Pops straightened up, his joints creaking. "Look, I know you got your reasons for keeping quiet about who you are. But people are scared. They're starting to talk about selling. Maybe that's the point," Amara said quietly. She handed the towel back to Pops. "Thank you. For this, and for the information. Just be careful," he warned. "Whatever game you're playing here—" "No game, Pops. Just justice." She touched his arm briefly. "Don't spread word about tonight. Not yet." Back in her car, parked around the corner from the hardware store, Amara pulled out her phone. She dialed Detective Morales's direct line, keeping one eye on her side mirrors. The phone rang twice before a familiar voice answered. "Morales, did you get the audio?" Amara asked without preamble. "Clear as day. You okay, Chief?" "I'm fine. The GPS tracker is live. I need you to monitor that signal. They took my purse, but they have no idea what they really grabbed." "Already on it." Keys clicked in the background as Morales worked. You want backup? Not yet. Let's see where they go first. Text me the location when they stop moving. Copy that. And Chief, be careful. Amara ended the call and started her car. The drive home was quick and quiet. The streets empty except for a stray cat darting between parked cars. Her house was dark when she pulled into the driveway, exactly as she'd left it. Inside, she headed straight for the bathroom. Under the harsh, fluorescent light, she examined her injuries. The split lip was already swelling, but it would heal clean. A few bruises were starting to darken along her jaw and throat. Nothing that wouldn't fade in a few days. She cleaned the cut carefully, applying antiseptic with practiced movements. Her reflection stared back at her. Composed, determined, undefeated. They'd expected an easy mark. Instead, they'd attacked a woman who'd spent decades learning how to fight back. In her bedroom, Amara knelt beside the bed and pulled out a heavy metal case. The combination lock clicked softly as she spun the numbers. Inside, nestled in foam padding, lay her badge and service weapon. The gold shield caught the light. Chief of Police, engraved beneath the Brookhaven city seal. Her phone buzzed, a text from Morales. Signal stopped. Old Sunshine Laundromat on 4th. 2 vehicles in parking lot. Amara picked up her service weapon, checking it with swift, practiced movements. The familiar weight felt reassuring in her hands. She slid it into her holster, then clipped her badge to her belt. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance, promising a storm. Her phone buzzed again. Surveillance units in position. Orders? Amara typed back, "Hold position. Do not engage. Wait for my arrival." She stood, adjusting her holster until it sat perfectly against her hip. The weapon's weight balanced the badge on her other side. In the mirror, she saw not the woman they'd tried to victimize on the sidewalk, but the chief of police they'd been too stupid to recognize. Another rumble of thunder, closer now. Amara grabbed her keys and checked her phone one last time. The GPS signal hadn't moved. They were still at the laundromat, probably counting their lucky stars and dividing up what they thought was just another night's take. She opened her front door, pausing for a moment to listen to the approaching storm. A smile tugged at her split lip as she said quietly, "Let's go fishing." The night air had grown heavier, thick with the promise of rain. Lightning flickered in the distance, illuminating storm clouds that matched her mood, dark, charged, and ready to break. She pulled her door shut behind her, leaving the porch light off. Let them think she was hiding at home, nursing her wounds. They were about to learn just how wrong they'd been about their target tonight. Thunder rolled again as she walked to her car, the sound like distant drums announcing the beginning of something bigger than a simple mugging. Much bigger. Just before midnight, a fine drizzle misted the empty streets around the Sunshine Laundromat. Amara sat in an unmarked cruiser with Morales, watching water bead on the windshield. The building's faded sign flickered weakly, casting uneven shadows across its grimy windows. "Movement," Morales whispered, touching Amara's arm. Through the rain-streaked glass, they could make out 3 figures inside. Ghost's white tank top stood out in the dim fluorescent lighting, his tattoos dark smudges against his skin. "I count 3, Amara said quietly, dabbing at her split lip. It had stopped bleeding, but still throbbed. Ghost and 2 others. They watched as the men huddled around something on a folding table. One of them, shorter, nervous-looking, kept glancing toward the windows. Amara recognized him from earlier, the driver who'd hung back during the attack. "That's our weak link," Morales observed, following Amara's gaze. "Look at his body language. He's scared." "Good." Amara's fingers brushed her holstered weapon. Fear makes people honest. Inside the laundromat, Ghost handed something to the nervous driver. Even through the rain-blurred windows, they could see it was a dark duffel bag. The driver clutched it close, nodding rapidly at whatever instructions Ghost was giving him. "He's coming out," Morales said, hand moving to her own weapon. "Your call, Chief." Amara held up her hand, waiting. The driver emerged into the drizzle, looking both ways before hurrying toward a beaten-up sedan parked at the far end of the lot. The duffel bag bounced against his hip as he walked. Amara made a quick series of hand signals. Two plainclothes officers emerged from the shadows near the building's corner, moving with practiced silence. Morales slipped out of the cruiser, her footsteps barely audible on the wet pavement. The takedown was swift and nearly silent. Morales caught the driver from behind, one hand covering his mouth, while the other twisted his arm up behind his back. He didn't even have time to shout. The duffel bag hit the ground with a muffled thud. Inside the laundromat, Ghost's head snapped up at the movement outside. His eyes widened as he recognized Amara stepping into the light. He shouted something to his remaining partner and bolted toward the back door. "Police! Don't move!" Amara's voice carried through the rain, but Ghost was already gone, disappearing into the maze of alleys behind the building. His partner froze, hands raising slowly above his head as the plainclothes officers burst in. Morales had the driver face down on the wet pavement, cuffs already clicking into place. "Clear out here, Chief." "Trey," the driver whimpered when Morales pulled him up. "My name's Trey. I wasn't supposed to be here tonight. I just drive sometimes." "Shut up," Morales said, but not unkindly. She gave Amara a meaningful look. "He's ready to talk." Amara picked up the fallen duffel bag, unzipping it under the flickering laundromat sign. Inside, she found her purse, the strap still torn from the struggle. Next to it lay her old badge wallet, empty, just as she'd planned. She always kept her actual ID and credit cards in a hidden pocket of her trench coat. "Get him inside," she ordered, nodding toward the laundromat. "Let's have a chat." They sat Trey at the folding table where Ghost had stood minutes before. He couldn't stop fidgeting, his eyes darting between Amara and Morales. Water dripped from his clothes onto the linoleum floor. "I didn't know," he blurted before they could ask anything. "I swear I didn't know who you were. We just get the lists." "Lists?" Amara leaned forward, ignoring the throb in her lip. "What lists?" "The shopping lists." Trey swallowed hard. "They come as texts, addresses, times people usually walk home. Which ones to hit, which ones to leave alone." Morales pulled out her notebook. "Who sends these texts?" "I don't know. Ghost gets them first, passes them down. But they're always—" He trailed off, looking away. "They're always what?" Amara's voice was steel wrapped in silk. "They're always black folks," Trey whispered. "Always on certain streets. Sometimes there's notes about cell pressure or prime location." His shoulders slumped. "I just drive. I didn't ask questions." "But Ghost did, didn't he?" Amara pressed. "He's smart enough to see the pattern." Trey nodded miserably. "He started asking last week. Wanted to know why these specific streets, these specific people. That's when they offered him more money to keep quiet." Morales's pen scratched across her notebook. "Who's they?" "I don't know names. Suits. Ghost meets them sometimes. They drive nice cars with tinted windows." Trey looked up at Amara, his eyes wet. "They said it was just business. Property values and demographics and stuff." Amara stepped away from the table, moving toward the grimy windows. The rain had picked up, drumming against the glass. Lightning flashed in the distance, illuminating the empty street outside. "Somebody's drawing the map for them," she murmured, watching rivulets of water trace patterns down the window. Another flash of lightning lit up her face, highlighting the fury in her eyes and the determined set of her jaw. Behind her, Morales continued questioning Trey, but Amara barely heard them. Her mind was already racing ahead, connecting dots, seeing the bigger picture emerging from the shadows. This wasn't random violence. This was coordinated, targeted, purposeful. and someone was going to answer for it. Morning light streamed through the tall windows of City Hall's main conference room, casting long shadows across the polished oak table. Amara sat straight-backed in her chair, her split lip now a dark reminder of last night's violence. The bruise had deepened to purple, impossible to hide with makeup. Councilman Peter Klein stood at the head of the table, his silver hair catching the sunlight. His expensive suit and carefully measured smile projected an image of concerned authority. "I must commend Chief Reed on her composure during this unfortunate incident," Klein announced to the gathered department heads and city officials. His voice dripped with artificial sympathy. "Such grace under pressure. Most people would have been far more rattled." Amara kept her face neutral, though her jaw tightened slightly. She'd known Klein long enough to recognize when he was setting up his next play. "Thank you, Councilman," she replied evenly. "But I'd prefer we focus on the broader pattern of targeted crimes in our community." "Precisely my concern." Klein's smile widened as he gestured to his assistant, who began distributing thick folders to everyone present. "Which is why I'm introducing the Neighborhood Safety Partnership Initiative." Amara opened the folder, scanning the executive summary. Her eyes narrowed as she read about proposed private security contracts, developer-funded surveillance systems, and proactive community protection measures. "These attacks have made it clear that our current resources are stretched thin," Klein continued, his gaze sliding meaningfully over Amara. "Our partners in the development community have generously offered to help fund additional security presence in our most vulnerable neighborhoods." "Vulnerable?" Amara repeated, her tone careful but sharp. "Would these be the same neighborhoods currently marked for redevelopment?" Deputy Chief Walcott cleared his throat from his seat near Klein. "Chief Reed, perhaps your recent experience is causing you to see connections that aren't there." A murmur rippled through the room. Amara turned to face Walcott, noting how he'd positioned himself physically closer to Klein than to her. "I assure you, Deputy Chief, my judgment is perfectly clear," she said. "Just as I'm clear on the fact that these crimes show suspicious patterns of targeting. With all due respect," Walcott's voice carried a hint of condescension, "you're personally involved now. It's natural to be emotional after such a traumatic experience." The room temperature seemed to drop several degrees. Amara leaned forward slightly, her voice low but carrying to every corner of the room. "Emotional, Ron? Would that be like your emotional response when you were passed over for chief? Or is this a different kind of emotional?" Walcott's face flushed red. Before he could respond, Klein stepped in smoothly. "Please, let's keep this professional. We're all on the same side here." He tapped the proposal folder. "This initiative will bring much-needed resources to our police force while protecting property values for all residents." "All residents?" Amara raised an eyebrow. "Or just the ones you want to keep?" Before Klein could answer, Amara's phone buzzed. A text from Morales. "Emergency! Your office. Now." "If you'll excuse me," Amara stood, gathering her materials. "I have an urgent matter to attend to. We'll continue this discussion after I've had time to properly review the proposal." She strode out of the conference room, feeling Klein and Walcott's eyes boring into her back. The click of her heels echoed down the marble hallway as she made her way to her office, where Morales was waiting with a laptop and several maps spread across her desk. "Look at this," Morales said without preamble, pointing to the screen. "I overlaid the robbery reports from the last 3 months with the proposed redevelopment zones." Amara leaned in, studying the digital map. Red dots marking reported crimes clustered tightly around highlighted areas tagged for new development projects. "Perfect overlap," Amara muttered. "Too perfect to be coincidence." "There's more." Morales pulled up another window showing property records. "Every victim was a black homeowner in these zones. And look at the timing. Most attacks happened right before property value assessments or zoning meetings." Amara's fingers traced the pattern on the screen. They're using fear to drive down prices, make people desperate to sell. Chief? Morales's voice changed, tension creeping in. She held up her phone. Something just hit social media. The video was grainy, but clear enough. A carefully edited version of last night's attack. It started with Amara's counterstrike, making it appear she had thrown the first punch. The clip cut out Ghost's initial assault and racist taunts, showing only her resistance. Comments were already flooding in beneath the post. Police brutality against local youth. Who's the real thug here? This is what happens when they give them badges. Amara watched the doctored footage, her expression hardening with each frame. The video ended with a freeze frame of her bloodied face, twisted in rage as she fought back. An image calculated to play into every racist stereotype they could exploit. They're trying to control the narrative, Morales said quietly. Make you look unstable, aggressive. Support Walcott's claim that you're too emotional. Find out who posted it, Amara ordered, her voice steady despite the anger burning in her chest. And get me everything you can on Klein's private security contractors. Something tells me we'll find our suits with tinted windows there. Outside her office window, the morning sun illuminated the city sprawling below, a patchwork of neighborhoods where people like her mother had fought and saved for decades to build their homes. Now, someone wanted to erase all that history with a few calculated crimes and some clever paperwork. The bruise on her lip throbbed, a constant reminder of last night's violence. But it wasn't the physical pain that fueled her rage. It was the realization that her attack had been just one small part of a much larger assault on her community. The evening sun cast long shadows across Evelyn Reed's dining room as she set down a steaming plate of pot roast in front of Amara. The small TV in the corner murmured with the local news, its glow reflecting off the collection of family photos adorning the walls. You need to eat something proper, Evelyn insisted, settling into her chair. Can't fight battles on an empty stomach. Amara managed a small smile, though her split lip made even that painful. The familiar comfort of her mother's cooking helped ease some of the day's tension. The house smelled of pot roast, fresh rolls, and decades of family memories. Breaking news tonight, the TV anchor's voice cut through their quiet dinner. Controversy erupts over viral video showing Brookhaven Police Chief Amara Reed in violent altercation. The doctored footage played again, the same carefully edited version that made Amara look like the aggressor. Evelyn's hand began to shake as she watched, her fork clattering against her plate. "Those lying devils," Evelyn whispered, her voice tight with fury. "They cut out everything those thugs did to you, just like they always do. Twist things around to make us look like the violent ones." "Mama, it's okay." Amara reached across the table, covering her mother's trembling hand with her own. "We've got the full footage. The truth will come out. The truth." Evelyn's eyes flashed. "I've seen what they do to the truth, baby. I watched them twist Martin's words, paint the Panthers as terrorists. Now, they're doing the same to you. This is different." Amara squeezed her mother's hand. "I'm the chief of police. They can't just—" Her phone buzzed. Morales calling. Amara put it on speaker. "Chief, it's getting ugly online," Morales reported. "Trolls are flooding social media, claiming you assaulted an innocent young man for no reason. They're calling for your badge." Evelyn's lips pressed into a thin line as she listened. Her hands still trembled, but now with a different kind of anger. The slow, burning kind that had fueled her through decades of civil rights battles. "Let me guess," Amara said. "These trolls all have brand new accounts?" "Created in the last few hours," Morales confirmed, "and they're all pushing the same talking points about police aggression and community safety. Same phrases Klein used in his proposal." A knock at the front door interrupted them. Evelyn went to answer it, returning with Pops Carter. The elderly hardware store owner carried his trademark thermos of coffee, his face grave. "Evening, ladies," he nodded to them both. "Thought you should know. Them real estate fellows been sniffing around again. 3 different ones today, all carrying the same fancy folders." "Let me guess," Amara said, "offering to help people relocate to safer neighborhoods?" Pops settled into a chair, his weathered hands wrapping around his thermos. "Mrs. Johnson down the block. They told her straight out her property value's gonna drop after these gang incidents. Offered to buy her out now, before things get worse." The TV droned on, now showing split-screen pundits debating the footage. Evelyn muted it with a disgusted gesture. "It's all connected," Amara said, pushing back from the table. She began to pace, her mind racing. The robberies, Klein's safety program, these property vultures, they're all working the same angle. "Scare tactics," Evelyn nodded grimly. "Just like back in the 60s when they wanted to run that highway through the neighborhood. Create a crisis, then sweep in with their solution. Only this time, they're using gangs instead of bulldozers," Pops added, "picking their targets careful-like. All the old families, all the black homeowners." Amara stopped at the window, looking out at the quiet street where she'd been attacked. Porch lights dotted the darkness like stars, each one marking a home someone was trying to take away. The same homes where she'd played as a child, where neighbors had watched out for each other through good times and bad. "They're trying to break us," Evelyn said softly. "Make us feel unsafe in our own homes. Make us run." That's what the edited video is really about, Amara realized. They're not just trying to discredit me, they're sending a message. If even the chief of police can't be safe here, then who can? Pops finished. That's what they want folks thinking. Another call came in from Morales. "Chief, Walcott's given an interview. He's suggesting you step back from active duty for your own well-being after the trauma of the attack." Amara's jaw tightened. Through the window, she could see the spot where she'd fought Ghost and his crew. The concrete still bore faint traces of her blood. "They think they picked the wrong woman," she whispered, more to herself than the others. The streetlight caught her reflection in the glass. Split lip, determined eyes, her mother's strength written in every line of her face. Behind her, Evelyn and Pops exchanged knowing looks. They'd seen that expression before, on the faces of others who'd stood their ground when the powers that be tried to push them out. It was the look of someone who'd just found their line in the sand. The quiet street outside held no hint of the forces aligning against it. But in that moment, watching her reflection in the darkened window, Amara saw with perfect clarity what she was really fighting for. This wasn't just about one mugging or one doctored video. This was about something much older and deeper. The right of people to hold on to their homes, their history, their community. Morning sunlight streamed through the blinds of Amara's office as she stood before a large wall map of Brookhaven. Her finger traced the pattern of recent robberies, each marked with a red pin. Beside her, Morales held up a translucent overlay showing planned development zones. "Let me," Morales said, carefully aligning the sheets. The overlap was unmistakable. Every single robbery target fell within the proposed revitalization corridors. "Look at this cluster." Amara tapped a section where 5 pins crowded together. All elderly homeowners, all living alone, and all receiving visits from Klein's real estate partners the next day. Morales added, consulting her notebook. "Mrs. Johnson, Mr. Washington, the Lee sisters." A knock at the door interrupted them. Nia Blake, Amara's niece, burst in with the energetic determination of a 22-year-old on a mission. Her braids were pulled back in a neat bun, her phone already in hand. "Auntie, we need to document this," Nia declared, filming the map wall. People need to see the pattern. Nia, this is an active investigation, Amara started, but her niece cut her off. And that doctored video of you is still spreading. We need to fight back with real stories. Nia's dark eyes flashed with the same fire Amara recognized from her own reflection. I've got nearly 10,000 followers on my activism channel. Let me interview the residents, show what's really happening. Morales raised an eyebrow at Amara. She's got a point, Chief. Traditional evidence takes time we might not have. Amara studied the map again, thinking of Evelyn's trembling hands, of Pops's grim warnings. Sometimes the old ways needed new tools. All right, she nodded. But be careful. These people aren't just pushing paper. They're willing to use violence. I know. Nia's hand brushed her aunt's bruised lip. That's exactly why we need to expose them. Morales spread surveillance photos across Amara's desk. Speaking of exposure, we got something on the getaway car. That partial plate from the night of your attack matches a vehicle registered to BCG Consulting. Construction consultants? Amara leaned in. Front company, Morales explained. They file paperwork for all of Klein's biggest donors. The car's been spotted at 3 other robbery sites. Amara's phone buzzed. A text from Pops. More suits on Cedar Street, carrying clipboards, taking pictures. They're getting bolder, Amara muttered. She turned to Nia. Start with Cedar Street. Those residents need to tell their stories before they're pressured into silence. Nia was already heading for the door, phone ready. On it. I'll live stream from Mrs. Johnson's porch. She makes the best sweet tea in the neighborhood, and nobody says no to her. Throughout the day, Morales brought in more evidence. Security footage showing the same BCG car circling targeted blocks. Phone records linking burner numbers to the consulting firm's office, permit applications filed suspiciously quickly after each robbery. As evening approached, Amara's desk phone lit up. Chief, her secretary called, you need to see this. Nia's stream is blowing up. Amara pulled up the video on her computer. The footage opened on Mrs. Johnson's floral print couch, where the elderly woman sat straight-backed and dignified despite her obvious anger. They came right after those thugs broke into the Thompson house, Mrs. Johnson was saying, talking about market values and safety concerns. Said they'd give me 30 days to decide before the offer drops. The camera panned to Mr. Washington on the porch swing. Man in an expensive suit told me I'm sitting on valuable property. Said it'd be a shame if something happened to decrease its worth. More seniors appeared, each with similar stories. The Lee sisters described late-night phone calls warning about changing neighborhood demographics. Pops showed clipboard marks on his door from uninvited property assessments. The comments section exploded with local residents sharing their own experiences. Timestamps matched robbery reports. Property company names connected to Klein's donors. The pattern became impossible to ignore. Nia's steady voice narrated, "These are our elders. They marched for civil rights, built businesses, raised families here. Now they're being targeted, threatened, pushed out, all so developers can build luxury condos nobody in this neighborhood can afford." The video cut to evening footage of suited men retreating to expensive cars as neighbors filmed them with phones raised. "We see you," Nia's voice declared. "We're documenting everything." In her office, Amara watched the view counter climb. Local news stations were already picking up the story. She could imagine Klein and his cronies scrambling to contain this new narrative they couldn't control. "Chief," Morales entered with fresh surveillance photos. "BCG's office is suddenly very busy for this time of night. Lots of paper shredding from the looks of it." "Let them shred," Amara smiled grimly. "The story's already out there, and the neighborhood is watching now. Really watching." Her phone buzzed with a text from Evelyn. "Baby girl, you need to see the impact Nia's making. Every porch on my street is full of people talking, sharing stories. We're done being afraid. Amara stood at her window, watching the sun set over her city. On her desk, Nia's live stream continued to gather momentum, the voices of her community rising together, refusing to be silenced or bought out or frightened away. The fight was far from over, but something had shifted. The predators counting on shadows and silence hadn't counted on the power of sunlight, or the strength of a community finally shining it on their schemes. The fluorescent lights of police headquarters hummed overhead as Amara walked the familiar corridor to Deputy Chief Walcott's office. Her boots clicked against the polished floor, echoing in the quiet afternoon lull. Through the glass walls, she could see him waiting, his expression tight and controlled. "Come in, Chief Reed." Walcott's voice carried that false warmth she'd grown to despise. He gestured to the chair across from his desk, a power play she recognized, making her sit lower than him. Amara remained standing. "You wanted to see me?" Walcott's smile thinned. He shuffled some papers on his desk, a show of bureaucratic authority. "I've been reviewing your recent activities. The surveillance on BCG Consulting, the coordination with your niece's social media campaign." He looked up, eyes cold. "It needs to stop. Those activities are part of an active investigation into organized criminal targeting of our residents." Amara kept her voice level, professional. "An investigation where you're the victim." Walcott leaned forward. "It's a clear conflict of interest. You're too close to this, Amara." The use of her first name made her jaw clench. "I'm the chief of police, investigating a pattern of crimes against our community." "That's not a conflict. That's my job." "Your job," Walcott's voice hardened, "is to maintain the department's reputation. These wild conspiracy theories about developers and targeted harassment, you're making us look unstable." "Unstable?" Amara placed both hands on his desk, looming over him. "We have evidence linking robbery targets to property acquisitions. We have testimonies of intimidation. We have financial trails. We have a chief who was attacked and is now seeing shadows everywhere." Walcott stood, trying to match her presence. "The press is already questioning your objectivity. The mayor's office is concerned." "The mayor's office?" Amara's laugh was sharp. "Or Councilman Klein's donors. That's exactly what I'm talking about." Walcott jabbed a finger at her. "These baseless accusations against respected community leaders." "I have phone records," Amara cut him off. "Bank transfers, witness statements. That's not baseless, Ron. That's police work." "It's a vendetta," he snapped, "and it stops now. I'm ordering you to recuse yourself from this investigation." Amara straightened, her voice dropping to that quiet register that made smarter men nervous. "You don't have the authority to give me that order." "No?" Walcott's smile turned ugly. "Maybe it's time we reviewed the department's chain of command. After all, a chief who can't maintain professional distance." A knock interrupted them. Detective Morales stood in the doorway, tablet in hand, her expression carefully neutral. "Chief Reed? A moment of your time?" Walcott waved a dismissive hand. "We're in a meeting." "It's about the burner phones," Morales continued, speaking to Amara. "The ones used to text target locations to the robbery crew? We traced the purchase records." Amara saw Walcott's face twitch. "Go on, detective." Morales stepped into the office, turning her tablet so both chiefs could see. 4 phones, bought with cash, but the buyer used the store's rewards program out of habit. Account belongs to Martin Shaw of Dynamic Strategies, LLC, a political consulting firm hired by Councilman Klein's campaign last year. "Circumstantial," Walcott snapped, but his voice had lost its certainty. "The same firm," Morales continued, "that received 6-figure payments from BCG Consulting 2 days after each major property acquisition in the target zones." Amara watched Walcott's face closely. Funny how those connections keep piling up, isn't it, Ron? This department, Walcott's voice shook slightly, cannot afford to antagonize. Cannot afford to what? Amara's voice could have cut steel. To investigate crimes? To protect our residents? To follow evidence wherever it leads? She straightened her jacket. That's exactly what this department can and will do. And if anyone has a problem with that, they're welcome to file a formal complaint. She turned to leave, then paused in the doorway. Oh, and Ron, the next time you want to discuss my objectivity, remember, I'm not the one trying to bury evidence. The hallway felt cooler as Amara strode toward the exit, Morales falling into step beside her. Neither spoke until they reached the small coffee cart outside headquarters. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the courthouse steps as they claimed their usual bench. Amara wrapped her hands around her paper cup, letting the warmth ground her. Good timing back there. Figured you could use the backup. Morales sipped her own coffee. He's scared. They all are. Amara watched pedestrians hurry past. We're getting too close to something bigger than a few street robberies. The burner phone data, Morales spoke quietly. There's more. Shaw's been making regular calls to a number registered to the mayor's office. They sat in heavy silence, both understanding the magnitude of what they were uncovering. Across the street, a black SUV idled, its tinted windows reflecting the setting sun. Neither woman acknowledged it directly, but both noted its presence, its deliberate positioning. Amara took another sip of coffee, her face betraying nothing. The game was changing, the stakes rising. She'd known it would come to this from the moment she'd felt that ceramic tracker in her palm during the robbery. Now there was no going back, only forward, into whatever storm was brewing. The basement air hung thick with mold and dust. A single bulb swayed overhead, casting shifting shadows across the concrete walls. Ghost sat on a metal folding chair, carefully wrapping an ace bandage around his forearm. Purple bruises marked where Amara had struck him. Precise hits, not wild swings. He flexed his hand, remembering how she'd moved. Not like someone scared, but someone trained. Each block, each counter, it was textbook stuff, the kind you learn in academies, not streets. The memory made his skin prickle. Footsteps creaked on the wooden stairs. Victor Shaw descended in his usual crisp suit, looking out of place in the grimy space. He carried a manila envelope, his patent leather shoes avoiding puddles from the leaking pipes. Your payment, Shaw placed the envelope on a rickety table. Plus, a bonus for taking that hit to the ribs. Ghost didn't reach for it. Need to talk about these lists you're sending. What's to talk about? Shaw checked his phone, barely glancing up. You get the addresses, you do the job. Simple business. Yeah? Ghost stood, his chair scraping concrete. Notice something about those addresses? Every single one. Black families, older folks mostly. People who've been there 30, 40 years. Shaw's fingers paused on his screen. Your point? My point is we ain't hitting rich areas. Ain't hitting those new townhouses up on Hill Street. Just these specific blocks, these specific people. Ghost stepped closer. Why's that? Market factors. Shaw's voice was dismissive. Demographics and opportunity. Bullshit! Ghost's voice echoed off the walls. You're picking targets. Setting up scared seniors so your developer buddies can swoop in with lowball offers. Shaw finally looked up, eyes cold. They're the ones who'll fold first. Simple as that. One good scare, they'll sell cheap and run. Basic economics. Basic economics? Ghost grabbed his own phone, pulled up a photo. This is Mrs. Watson, 73 years old. Raised 4 kids in that house. Husband died fighting overseas. He swiped to another. Mr. Jenkins, retired factory worker, built that porch himself. Another swipe. The Taylors, They're grandsons in my sister's class. Touching. Shaw's lip curled. Since when do you care about their life stories? Since I realized we ain't just robbing folks. We're helping rich men steal homes. Ghost's voice dropped lower. Using me to scare my own people out of their neighborhood. Their neighborhood? Shaw laughed. It's real estate. Nothing personal. They can't afford the new property taxes anyway. We're doing them a favor. Ghost's fist clenched, but he held back. Violence wouldn't help. Not here, not now. Instead, he reached into his jacket and pulled out Amara's old badge wallet, the one from her purse. He turned it over in his hands, remembering how she'd fought. The stance, the technique, the calm fury in her eyes. No ordinary victim would have moved like that. That woman we hit last night, Ghost said quietly. She let us take the purse. Didn't even try to hold on to her phone or cards. Just the kind of thing someone might do if they wanted us to grab a tracker. Shaw's expression flickered. You're overthinking it? Nah. Ghost tucked the wallet away. For once I'm thinking just right. About a lot of things. He walked past Shaw, shoulder checking him slightly. Not enough to start a fight, just enough to make a point. The basement stairs groaned under his weight as he climbed toward street level. Outside, the evening air felt cleaner than the basement's rot. Children played hopscotch on cracked sidewalks, their laughter echoing off boarded windows and for sale signs. An old man sat on his porch, watching them with tired eyes, while a realtor's car cruised by slowly. Ghost touched his bruised arm again, feeling the precise spots where Amara had struck. Professional hits, trained hits, the kind that came with a badge and years of practice. He watched a little girl draw chalk figures on the concrete, her mother calling from a window above the hardware store. These were his streets, his people. The same folks who'd slipped him sandwiches when food was tight, who'd kept quiet when cops came looking, who'd watched out for his sister when he couldn't. A sleek car rolled past, one of Shaw's other runners, probably scouting tomorrow's opportunities. The children paused their game until it passed, then resumed jumping between chalk lines. Even they knew to be wary now. Ghost started walking, no destination in mind. Past the corner store, where Mr. Jenkins still gave neighborhood kids credit when times were tough. Past Mrs. Watson's house, with its carefully tended roses. Past the Taylor place, where 3 generations had Sunday dinner on the front porch. All marked for redevelopment. All on Shaw's target list. He stopped at the intersection, staring at his reflection in a darkened shop window. The white tank top, the tattoos, the hard expression. He looked exactly like what they wanted him to be. A weapon aimed at his own community. This ain't what I signed up for, he muttered, turning away from his reflection. The street lights flickered on one by one as he walked deeper into the gathering dark, leaving the children's laughter behind. The community center buzzed with tension as residents filed in, filling rows of metal folding chairs. Local news cameras perched like vultures along the back wall, their red lights blinking in the stuffy air. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a harsh glare on the crowd's worried faces. Councilman Klein stood at the podium, perfectly pressed suit reflecting his polished smile. "Friends and neighbors," he began, spreading his hands, "we're here tonight to discuss the future of Brookhaven. A safer, more prosperous future for all." In the third row, Evelyn Reed's fingers tightened around her worn leather purse. Beside her, Pops Carter's jaw clenched as Klein continued his speech. "Crime is up 17% in our historic neighborhoods," Klein gestured to a PowerPoint slide. "That's why our neighborhood safety partnership is crucial. Private security patrols, funded by our friends in development, will protect our most vulnerable residents." Nia Blake sat cross-legged on the floor near the stage, phone held steady as she live-streamed. The comment feed scrolled rapidly as viewers joined. mostly locals, sharing angry emoji reactions to Klein's words. And yes, Klein's voice dripped concern. Some change is inevitable, but change brings opportunity. Our partners are offering very generous relocation packages. Packages? Pops Carter stood, his hardware store apron still on from work. Is that what you call forcing us out? Sir, please, Klein started, but Pops wasn't finished. My daddy built our store after coming home from Korea. Worked himself to the bone so I could inherit something worth having. His voice carried clear and strong. Now you send your suits around, talking about market rates, while your thugs make our streets unsafe. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Nia adjusted her camera angle, capturing both Pops's righteous anger and Klein's faltering smile. Evelyn Reed rose next, her nurse's uniform crisp despite her 12-hour shift. I've lived here 43 years, raised my children here. These aren't just houses you're trying to flip. They're homes. They're history. She turned to face the crowd. We survived dogs and fire hoses, survived redlining and blockbusting. Now they think they can scare us out with street criminals and smooth talk? Her voice cracked with emotion. We didn't break then. We won't break now. The room erupted in applause. Nia's live stream exploded with heart emojis and raised fist symbols. Klein tapped the microphone. Please, let's remain civil. Civil? Amara stepped out from the side entrance, her police uniform commanding attention. She carried a thick folder. Let's talk about civil, Councilman. She walked to the podium, spreading out maps and charts. Here's every reported street crime in the past 6 months. Red dots clustered in specific neighborhoods. And here are the properties your development partners have marked for renewal. She laid a transparent overlay on top. The patterns matched perfectly. Gasps filled the room. Camera flashes popped like lightning. Now, here's something interesting, Amara continued, her voice steady but sharp. Every victim was a black homeowner. Every home targeted sits on land your donors want to buy. That's not coincidence. That's coordination. Klein's face flushed red. Chief Reed, you're making baseless accusations. The only thing base here is using criminals to drive out families who've lived here for generations. Amara's words cut through his protest. We have evidence linking the attacks to political consultants, to private security firms, to shell companies that all lead back to your donors. She faced the crowd. They're not just trying to buy our homes. They're trying to steal our community, make us so scared we'll sell cheap and run. Our homes aren't for sale, someone shouted from the back. The cry was taken up, spreading through the room like fire. Our homes aren't for sale. Our homes aren't for sale. Nia panned her phone across the scene. Elderly couples holding hands defiantly. Young mothers with children on their hips. Small business owners in their work clothes. All chanting. All united. Klein grabbed his briefcase, retreating from the podium as the chant grew louder. Deputy Chief Walcott appeared at his elbow, guiding him toward the side door. The crowd kept chanting, drowning out Klein's attempts to restore order. Pops stood tall, his voice joining Evelyn's in the cry. Nia zoomed in on their determined faces, then swept to capture Amara still at the podium. Evidence spread before her like a battle plan. Outside the hall, away from cameras and microphones, Klein loosened his tie with trembling fingers. His carefully manufactured calm cracked, showing the fury beneath. He leaned close to Walcott, lips barely moving as he whispered, "She's finished." Walcott nodded grimly, watching through the window as the community continued their defiant chant. 2 nights after the town hall, moonlight cast long shadows across the abandoned construction yard. Rusty equipment loomed like sleeping giants. and half-finished foundations gaped like open wounds in the earth. Amara crouched behind a stack of concrete barriers, her breath steady in the humid air. Morales knelt beside her, both wearing tactical vests over plain clothes. "3 vehicles approaching," crackled a voice in their earpieces. "White van, black SUV, pickup truck. Coming in from the south entrance." Amara pressed her radio. "All units hold. Wait for my signal." She counted 14 officers hidden around the site's perimeter, ready to spring the trap. Gravel crunched under tires as the small convoy rolled in. The vehicles formed a triangle near a pile of steel beams, headlights cutting through dust and darkness. Ghost stepped out of the SUV first, his white tank top almost glowing in the dim light. 5 more men emerged, carrying duffel bags and what looked like crowbars. "Fan out," Ghost ordered. "Check the trailers first. Bo, get that generator running." Amara watched through binoculars as the crew spread across the yard. Ghost moved with less swagger than usual, his shoulders tense. He kept glancing toward the street, like he expected someone else. "Shaw's not here," Morales whispered. "Think Ghost knows he's being set up?" "He's smart enough to suspect it." Amara shifted her weight, but not smart enough to stay away. One of Ghost's men called out, "All clear on the east side." Ghost nodded, then froze. A sound had caught his attention, the faint scrape of a boot on metal. He turned toward the noise, eyes widening as he spotted movement in the shadows. "Police! Don't move!" Amara's voice boomed through the night. Flashlights blazed on from all directions, trapping Ghost's crew in circles of harsh light. 2 warning shots cracked overhead. Ghost's men scattered like startled rats. One dropped his crowbar with a clang, falling to his knees with his hands up. Another tried to run, but slipped in loose gravel, tackled by 2 officers before he could recover. Ghost bolted toward the pickup truck. Amara sprinted after him, boots pounding across packed dirt. He vaulted over a pile of lumber. She followed, closing the gap. He ducked behind the truck's tailgate, then popped up with something in his hand. Amara dropped and rolled as the crowbar whistled through the air where her head had been. She swept his legs, but he jumped back. The crowbar swung again. This time she caught it, using his momentum to yank him forward. Her knee drove into his stomach. He grunted but didn't let go, twisting to slam her against the truck's side. Pain flared across her ribs. She headbutted him, catching his chin. The crowbar clattered to the ground. They grappled in the dust, trading short, brutal strikes. Ghost was strong, but Amara had years of training. She locked his arm, pivoted her hips, and sent him sprawling. Before he could recover, she was on his back, driving her knee between his shoulder blades. The handcuffs clicked shut around his wrists. "You're done," she panted. "It's over." Ghost turned his head, spitting dirt. "You don't know what's coming, Chief." Around them, the raid was winding down. Officers led captured gang members to waiting cars. Morales supervised as evidence was catalogued. Phones, weapons, documents from the vehicles. 3 hours later, Ghost sat across from Amara in the station's interview room. His tank top was filthy, but his posture remained defiant. Morales stood in the corner, taking notes. "Here's how this works," Amara said. "You give us Shaw, we talk to the DA about considerations for you." Ghost's jaw worked. "Shaw's just middle management. This goes higher. Tell me, those texts, locations, times, target descriptions, they came through Shaw, but he was working for someone else, always taking calls, real nervous about deadlines and pressure from upstairs." Ghost leaned forward. Way he talked about it sounded like City Hall was calling shots. Amara slid a photo across the table. "This, the man who paid you?" Ghost nodded at Victor Shaw's image. "Yeah, but last few days he's been sketchy. Missing meetings, changing plans last minute, like he knows something's about to break." "Smart rat," Morales muttered. Jumping ship early. Dawn was breaking when they finally finished processing the scene. Amara stood in the parking lot, watching the sun paint the sky pink and gold. Her ribs ached where Ghost had slammed her, but satisfaction outweighed the pain. 6 months of pattern matching, surveillance, and careful pressure had finally paid off. Morales joined her, offering a cup of coffee. Good morning's work, Chief. We've got them, Amara said quietly. The phones, the payment records, Ghost's testimony. It's enough to start rolling this up the chain. Shaw's apartment is empty, Morales reported, but his computer's in evidence. Tech team's working on it now. Amara sipped her coffee, letting the warmth spread through her tired muscles. After so many late nights and dead ends, justice finally felt within reach. The scheme to terrorize black homeowners would be exposed, and the people behind it would face consequences. The moment of peace shattered as Morales's phone buzzed. She answered, listened, and her face went slack with shock. Turn on the news, she said hoarsely. Now. The small TV in Amara's office showed a morning anchor's grave face. Behind her, grainy body cam footage played on loop. The audio was crystal clear. Amara's voice ordering officers to use whatever force necessary and make them hurt. But Amara had never said those words. The footage was spliced together, edited to make her look brutal and unhinged. The ticker at the bottom of the screen read, Police Chief under fire, excessive force allegations surface. The next morning hit like a sledgehammer. Camera flashes strobed through the precinct's glass doors as reporters packed the steps. Inside, uniformed officers lined the walls of the main lobby, faces grim. The American flag hung limp behind the hastily assembled podium. Mayor Lewis adjusted his tie, dark circles under his eyes betraying a sleepless night. Beside him, Deputy Chief Walcott stood ramrod straight in his pressed uniform, hands clasped behind his back. The gathered media buzzed with whispers and clicking shutters. Amara walked in through the side entrance, her navy trench coat pressed and her chin high despite the bruising from last night's raid. A few officers nodded to her, others looked away. The tension crackled like static before a storm. Good morning, Mayor Lewis began, tapping the microphone. In light of deeply troubling footage that emerged early this morning, I've called this press conference to address serious allegations regarding police conduct in our city. Camera flashes intensified. Amara felt each word like a physical blow. After careful review and consultation with the Police Commission, I am announcing that Chief Amara Reed will be placed on administrative leave, effective immediately, pending a full investigation into these incidents. The room erupted. Reporters shouted questions, their voices overlapping. Chief Reed, how do you respond to the footage? Was excessive force authorized during last night's raid? Are the allegations of targeting specific neighborhoods true? Mayor Lewis raised his hands. Please, we are committed to a thorough and transparent review process. Deputy Chief Walcott will serve as acting chief during this period. Walcott stepped forward, his expression a perfect mask of concerned professionalism. This is a difficult day for our department, he said smoothly. We must ensure that proper procedures are followed and that public trust is maintained. Chief Reed has served this community well, but these allegations require our immediate attention. The false sympathy in his voice made Amara's stomach turn. She caught the ghost of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth, the private triumph beneath his public concern. Chief Reed, he continued, please surrender your badge and service weapon to Lieutenant Martinez. The walk to the front desk felt endless. Every eye in the room watched as Amara unclipped her badge holder and removed her sidearm. She placed them carefully on the desk, her movements deliberate and controlled. Martinez couldn't meet her gaze as he logged the items into evidence bags. Outside, The media scrum surged forward. Microphones thrust toward her face as she pushed through the crowd. Chief Reed, do you deny the authenticity of the footage? Were you aware of racial targeting in recent arrests? Do you plan to resign? She kept walking, head high, ignoring the barrage. Her car felt like a sanctuary when she finally reached it, the door closing out the chaos. She sat for a long moment, hands gripped tight on the steering wheel, before driving home. Evelyn was waiting on her front porch, worry etched deep in her face. She wrapped Amara in a fierce hug as soon as she stepped out of the car. "Baby girl," she whispered, "come inside. I made your favorite sweet potato pie." They sat at the kitchen table, sunlight streaming through worn lace curtains. The familiar scents of cinnamon and nutmeg filled the air, but Amara could barely taste the pie. "Mama, everything we built—" Her voice cracked. "Listen to me," Evelyn said firmly. "They think shame can beat you. But shame only works if you accept it. Your daddy and I didn't raise you to break under pressure." Amara nodded, squeezing her mother's hand. "The footage is fake. They spliced it together from different incidents." "Of course they did. But truth has a way of rising. Like bread dough. Can't keep it down forever." In her bedroom upstairs, Nia hunched over her laptop, furiously editing video clips. Her social media feeds were already filling with support from local activists and community members who'd seen her previous coverage. "Almost done, Auntie," she called down. "I've got testimonials from 3 people who were at scenes they used in that fake footage. Plus, timestamps that prove the audio was manipulated." "Be careful," Amara warned. "They'll come after you too." "Let them try. I've got backups of everything." The afternoon stretched into evening. Amara paced her living room, phone pressed to her ear as she talked with her union rep and attorney. Evelyn had gone home reluctantly, extracting a promise that Amara would call if she needed anything. Nia's car pulled out around 7. She had a late study group at the college library. Amara watched the taillights disappear around the corner, then returned to reviewing her case notes. There had to be a way to prove the footage was doctored. The house felt too quiet. Every creak made her tense, expecting more bad news. When her phone buzzed, she almost dropped it. "Chief?" Morales' voice was breathless, panicked. "Are you home?" "Yes. What's—" "Don't move. I'm 3 minutes out." True to her word, Morales' car screeched into the driveway moments later. She burst through the front door without knocking, face flushed and eyes wild. "Nia's gone," she gasped. Security camera caught it at the college parking lot. 4 men in a dark van, matches the crew from last night, the ones we didn't catch. The world tilted sideways. Amara grabbed the door frame to steady herself. "Ghosts people," she whispered, "taking revenge." "There's more," Morales said. "They left a message spray-painted on her car. Should have stayed quiet." The hardware store's back room smelled of sawdust and metal. A single overhead bulb cast harsh shadows across the fold-out table where maps and documents spread like battle plans. The wall clock ticked past midnight, its sound nearly lost under the hum of an ancient floor fan. Amara leaned against a shelf of paint cans, her badgeless chest feeling oddly light. Her phone sat silent. No word on Nia for 5 hours now. The waiting ate at her like acid. The door's bell jingled. Pops Carter emerged from the darkened storefront, leading Morales and 3 elderly residents, Mr. Washington from the Baptist Church, Ms. Torres, who ran the corner store, and Mrs. Green, whose family had owned their house since 1962. "Found some folks who remember how we used to keep watch," Pops said, pulling up metal chairs, before they gave it fancy names and uniforms. Morales dropped a laptop onto the table, her movements sharp with urgency. "Chief, you need to see this first," she typed rapidly, pulling up video files. "I called in a favor from the FBI's forensic lab. They ran spectrum analysis on that body cam footage. The screen flickered to life. Side-by-side clips played. The viral video versus original footage. Colored waves danced below each, showing audio patterns. "Look here," Morales pointed. They spliced 3 different raids together. The background noise signatures don't match. And see this visual artifact. Classic sign of digital manipulation. They even got sloppy with the lighting. Watch the shadows jump between cuts. "Can you prove it's deliberate?" Amara asked, leaning closer. "Better?" Morales smiled grimly. "I traced the editing software license. It was accessed from a computer registered to the department, specifically to Administrative Services, Walcott's division." Mrs. Green clicked her tongue. "That snake. Always smiling too wide at community meetings." "We got the proof," Mr. Washington said. "But they still got your badge and your girl." Amara's fingers clenched on the table edge. "Nia first. Then we deal with Walcott." Pops unrolled a street map marked with colored pushpins. "Already started organizing. Got eyes on every corner from Marshall Street to the old train tracks. Mrs. Torres's grandson installed cameras covering the alleys. Church ladies watching in shifts. Just like the old days," Ms. Torres added, "before they tried making us afraid of our own shadows." More residents filtered in quietly through the back door. Younger folks now, including some of Nia's activist friends with their laptops and phones. They settled against shelves and behind stacks of lumber, faces lit by screens as they monitored social media and police scanners. "They're moving patrols," one youth whispered, headphones pressed to one ear. "Heavy presence around the construction sites. But the old industrial park is dark." Morales spread crime scene photos across the blueprint of abandoned warehouses. "Ghost's crew used to operate through here, before the development plans changed everything." "Changed nothing," Mrs. Green corrected. "Just made the old tricks prettier. My daddy faced down night riders. Now they wear suits and wave paperwork. But it's the same game. Scare us out, buy us cheap, build it up fancy for other folks." Amara studied the map, mind racing. Without her badge, she had no official authority. But she had something better. She had a community that remembered how to protect its own. "Pops," she said quietly, "how many of your old security cameras still work?" "Most of them. Kept them running even after the city put in their fancy system." He grinned. "Old ways still work." "And the church basement?" she asked Mr. Washington. "Still set up for emergency shelter?" He nodded. "Always. Got cots, supplies, medical kit. Sister Mary's a retired nurse. She's ready if needed." Mrs. Torres pulled out her phone. "My boys can have 20 people here in 10 minutes. Clean record, strong backs, and they know how to keep quiet." The young activists shared knowing looks. One spoke up. "We can push counter-narratives online. Show people what's really happening. Nia taught us how to verify and amplify." Morales spread out surveillance photos of Ghost's known associates. "Working theory, they're holding Nia to force us back off the investigation. But they're scared. Ghost talked. Their political cover's shaky, and their real bosses are getting nervous." "Good," Amara said. "Nervous people make mistakes." She walked to the map, studying the pins marking recent incidents. Each one told a story, not just of crime, but of resistance. Where they tried intimidation, neighbors formed patrols. Where they spread lies, truth-tellers pushed back. Where they sought division, unity grew stronger. The floor fan hummed steadily, stirring papers as more people arrived. The back room felt like a war room now, generations of community knowledge merging with new tactical skills. Phones buzzed with updates, keyboards clicked with research, and voices murmured strategies passed down through years of protecting their own. Amara traced a line between the industrial zone and the proposed luxury condos. Everything connected: the robberies, the propaganda, the pressure to sell. A pattern designed to look like chaos. "We do this our way," she whispered, eyes fixed on the map that held her neighborhood's past and future. The room fell quiet. Dozens of faces turned toward her with fierce determination. They didn't need badges to defend their home. They never had. The abandoned church's basement smelled of mildew and old hymnals. Candles cast wavering shadows across empty pews, their wooden bones creaking in the humid night air. Water stains painted dark continents on the ceiling, and somewhere above, a loose shutter banged against brick. Amara sat in the front pew, hands folded, waiting. The familiar comfort of her service weapon was missing from her hip, stripped away with her badge. But she wasn't defenseless. Never had been. Morales appeared at the side door, Ghost's tall figure behind her. His white tank top was dingy now, and dark circles haunted his eyes. Without his crew backing him, without the street theater swagger, he looked younger, more human. "Clear outside," Morales reported, taking position near the stairs. "No tails." Ghost moved cautiously through the shadows, keeping distance between himself and Amara. His gaze swept the room. Tactical assessment, she noticed. Military precision. Not just street smart, then. "You're taking a risk," Amara said quietly. "Meeting the woman you robbed? You're taking the bigger risk." His voice was gravel rough. "Meeting the man who hurt you. That wasn't personal. This is." She gestured to the pew beside her. "Sit. Talk." He remained standing, shoulders tense. "Shaw's gone. Grabbed his stuff and vanished 2 days ago. Money stopped flowing. Crew's getting paranoid. And Nia? They got her at the old model home site. New subdivision." His jaw worked. "It wasn't the plan. Some of the boys, they're scared you'll roll up the whole operation. Think having leverage might save them." Thunder growled outside. Rain began pattering against the stained glass windows, distorting their saints' faces into twisted masks. "Tell me about the cleanup meeting," Amara pressed. "Tomorrow night. They're moving everything. Phones, cash, records, and—" He hesitated. "My niece." Ghost nodded. "Look, this ain't right. I signed up to put pressure on folks, sure. Make them nervous enough to sell cheap. But kidnapping? That's different territory. You knew it was wrong from the start," Amara said. "Targeting specific homes, specific people, specific skin color." "Yeah." He sank onto a pew across the aisle. "Started asking questions when I saw the pattern." Shaw just laughed. "Said some neighborhoods need motivation to accept progress." "Progress?" Amara's voice dripped acid. "Like what they did to your old block?" His head snapped up. "You know about that?" "Did my homework. 5 years ago. Your family's building, condemned on paper, perfect in reality. Developer pressure, mysterious fires, suddenly everyone's displaced. Now it's luxury apartments." Ghost's fingers traced his forearm tattoo. A phoenix, she realized, rising from flames. "My sister," he said roughly. "She was 16. We ended up scattered. Foster care took her. Streets took me. Now I'm doing the same thing to other families." Morales shifted near the stairs, hand never far from her concealed weapon. But Amara saw something changing in Ghost's face. Recognition. Understanding. "Help me get Nia back," Amara said. "Help me expose Shaw's operation. I'll make sure your sister is protected. Housing, education, fresh start. My word as a cop. You ain't a cop right now. I'm something better." Amara leaned forward. "I'm someone who remembers what it means to protect our own. Badge or no badge." Rain drummed harder outside. Lightning flashed through the windows, turning Ghost's face into a stark relief of shadows and scars. "Shaw's got friends," he warned. "Powerful ones. They'll come for anyone who crosses them." "Let them come." Amara's voice was steel. "I've got friends too. Ones who've faced worse than corrupt developers and bought politicians." Ghost stood, pacing between the pews. His movements were caged, restless. "The meeting's at midnight. Loading dock behind the model home. They'll have guards, Bobby and Rick up front, Marcus on the roof. Armed. Numbers inside? 4, maybe 5. Plus Shaw's replacement. Some new suit. Talks real proper, but his eyes are dead." Ghost stopped pacing. "Your niece, she's got spirit. Keeps telling them they picked the wrong family to mess with." A ghost of a smile touched Amara's lips. "She's right. They'll move her first, before the money. Separate vehicle." He drew a rough map on an old bulletin board, marking positions. "Loading dock here, backup vehicle here, blind spots in the construction supplies here and here." Morales studied the layout. "Security cameras? 4 total. But the site super's on payroll. Loops the feed every night from midnight to 4 a.m. Cover for the regular drops. Thunder cracked directly overhead, making the old church shudder." In the brief silence that followed, Ghost turned to face Amara fully. "You got one shot at this," he said. "You go in heavy. They'll panic. Nia's the only thing keeping them from scorching earth and running." Amara stood, candlelight casting her shadow long against the wall. "Then we go in smart. Hit them where they're not looking. I can get you through the fence," Ghost offered. "But after that, I'm burned. Crew sees me helping cops. Don't matter if you got a badge or not. I'm dead." "We're not going in as cops." Amara's eyes gleamed. "We're going in as community. And you're not helping cops. You're helping make things right." He studied her face for a long moment, then nodded once. Decision made. "You got one shot," he repeated. Outside, the storm gathered strength, rain hammering against stone like bullets. They huddled around the makeshift map, planning entry points and escape routes, while candlelight flickered and thunder rolled across the city's dark sky. Pre-dawn darkness wrapped around the half-finished subdivision like a shroud. The model home stood alone, a perfect facade surrounded by the wooden bones of unbuilt houses. Floodlights mounted on tall poles cast harsh white light across fresh sod and empty driveways, creating deep shadows between stacks of lumber and concrete pipes. Amara crouched behind a pile of drywall sheets, her navy trench coat blending with the shadows. To her right, Morales checked her weapon one last time. Ghost's intel had been precise. 2 guards visible at the loading dock, another shadow moving across the roof's scaffolding. Through her earpiece, Pops's gravelly whisper came through. "West side clear. My people are in position." She'd been surprised how many neighborhood elders had combat experience. Vietnam vets, former MPs, all answering Pops's call without hesitation. Now they formed a quiet perimeter, ensuring no one slipped away through the maze of construction. Ghost materialized beside her like his namesake, pointing to a gap between security lights. "Service entrance. Lock's broken. They use it for night runs." Amara nodded to Morales. Time to move. They crossed the muddy ground in silence, boots barely making a sound. The model home's perfect white paint gleamed under the floodlights, a beacon of progress built on stolen dreams. At the door, Ghost pressed his ear against wood, then held up 3 fingers. 3 more inside, plus Shaw's replacement and Nia. Amara touched her earpiece. "All teams, go." The first guard never saw Morales coming. She emerged from the shadows like smoke, her chokehold precise. He slumped without a sound. The second guard turned. Ghost's fist caught him clean on the jaw. Down. Inside was different. Inside exploded. A massive figure swung a crowbar at Amara's head. She jerked back, grabbing a length of 2x4 from a stack of lumber. The crowbar clanged against wood, sending splinters flying. "You picked the wrong house," the thug snarled. "No!" Amara drove her shoulder into his sternum, ramming him against the unfinished kitchen island. "You picked the wrong neighborhood." Behind her, Ghost grappled with another man, their struggle sending them crashing through fresh drywall in a cloud of white dust. The wall cracked, revealing wooden studs. Running footsteps above, Shaw's replacement was moving. Amara vaulted the fallen thug, taking the stairs 2 at a time. At the top, a figure in an expensive suit threw a wild punch. She slipped it easily, driving her forehead into his nose. He staggered back, blood staining his collar. "You can't!" he gasped. "Can't what?" Amara's voice was ice. "Defend my home? My family?" A door burst open. Morales, gun steady. "Clear down there! Nia? Here!" The voice came from a side room. They found her zip-tied to a chair, tear tracks on her fierce face. As Morales cut her free, Nia's eyes locked onto her aunt. "I knew you'd come. Always." Amara squeezed her hand. "You okay to walk?" Nia was already pulling out her phone. "Better than okay. I'm documenting." The live stream icon blinked red. Crashes from below. Shaw's replacement had bolted during their reunion. They thundered down the stairs in pursuit. The model home's living room was a magazine-perfect tableau of fake luxury. Cream carpets, staged furniture, even a little welcome home mat by the front door. Shaw's man sprinted across it, designer shoes slipping on the polished surface. He went down hard, briefcase bursting open. Envelopes spilled across pristine carpet. Hundreds of them, stuffed with cash. Payment for pain, scattered like fallen leaves. Ghost appeared from the kitchen, blood on his knuckles but eyes clear. He planted a knee in the fallen man's back, pinning him as distant sirens grew louder. "Federal agents!" The front door crashed open, tactical teams flooding in with rifles raised. Amara had made one call before the raid, to an old friend in the FBI's Public Corruption Unit. Sometimes you needed official channels, even when working outside them. Nia's phone captured everything. Shaw's replacement face down in his own blood money, Ghost holding him with grim satisfaction, the fallen thugs being cuffed and led out. Her live stream count ticked up, hundreds, thousands of viewers pouring in. Amara stood in the center of the chaos, blood trickling from a split eyebrow, her navy coat dusty with drywall. She looked directly into Nia's camera. "This is what corruption looks like," she said clearly. "This is how they try to push us out, through fear, through violence, through paid thugs and fake progress. But we are not afraid. We are not moving. This is our home." The rising sun painted the model home's windows orange as comments and shares exploded across social media. The truth, raw and undeniable, spreading faster than any lie. Ghost watched the feds lead Shaw's man away, then touched his forearm tattoo. The phoenix rising. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. "Now." Amara looked around at the ruined perfection of the staged room, at the real community that had come together to fight back. "Now we rebuild, the right way." Through the open door, they could see Pops and his team emerging from the shadows, standing tall in the dawn light. Elders who'd faced down worse than greedy developers, keeping watch over their neighborhood one more time. The sirens faded. Morning birds began to sing, and Nia's phone kept streaming, showing the world what happened when corruption picked the wrong community to test. 6 weeks after the model home raid, Judge Martinez's courtroom hummed with tension. Victor Shaw sat in the witness box, his expensive suit replaced by orange prison gear. His testimony rang clear through the packed gallery. "Councilman Klein coordinated everything," Shaw said, shoulders slumped in defeat. He chose which neighborhoods to target. Deputy Chief Walcott provided patrol schedules, edited footage to discredit Chief Reed. The goal was always the same: scare people into selling cheap. In the front row, Amara watched silently. Beside her, Evelyn squeezed her hand. They'd waited decades for this kind of truth to come out. Across town that same afternoon, construction crews were taking down the revitalized Brookhaven banners. Different workers moved through the old neighborhoods, local contractors fixing porches, repairing roofs, installing security systems, the city's restitution fund at work, turning blood money into healing. "We're documenting everything," Nia told her viewers, phone steady as she filmed elderly residents receiving their compensation checks. Her live streams had become must-watch viewing, raw footage of justice being served one nail, one board at a time. The next morning brought Klein's arrest. News helicopters circled as FBI agents led him out of his mansion in handcuffs. His perfectly pressed suit couldn't hide his trembling hands. Reporters shouted questions. He kept his head down. "Peter Klein, you're facing federal conspiracy and racketeering charges. Any comment?" He said nothing, but his face flushed red as he passed under his own campaign posters still hanging on lampposts. Walcott's arrest came hours later. The deputy chief was escorted through police headquarters, the same halls where he'd undermined Amara for years. Officers lined the corridor, turning their backs as he passed. His badge had already been cut in half. At the county jail, Ghost received news of his reduced sentence. 10 years instead of 30, with his sister safely relocated to their grandmother's home 3 states away. When Amara visited his cell, he stood at attention. "You did right in the end," she said simply. "Learned it from you," he replied. "Sometimes you gotta lose everything to see what matters." The mayor's press conference filled City Hall's steps with cameras. Behind the podium, he announced the creation of a regional integrity task force. "To lead this vital initiative," he declared, "I can think of no one better than Chief Amara Reed. Her courage exposed corruption at every level. Her leadership will ensure it never takes root again." Amara took the podium to thunderous applause. She kept her remarks brief. "This task force belongs to the community. We'll have civilian oversight, transparent reporting, and zero tolerance for those who abuse power or trust." In the crowd, Evelyn wiped proud tears. Beside her, Pops nodded in satisfaction. That afternoon, Pops climbed his stepladder one more time. The fresh paint on his hardware store gleamed in the sun. With careful strokes, he hung a new sign in his window. "Not for sale," in bold red letters. "Looks good, Pops," Nia called from the sidewalk, still filming. "Damn right it does," he grinned. "Been here 50 years, planning on 50 more." All through the neighborhood, other windows began sporting the same signs. Not out of fear now, out of pride, out of victory. At the courthouse, final sentencing brought closure. Klein received 20 years for conspiracy and corruption. Walcott got 15 for evidence tampering and abuse of power. Shaw's testimony earned him 12, with Ghost's cooperation reducing his time to 8 years. The defendant's actions represent a fundamental betrayal of public trust, Judge Martinez declared. This court sends a clear message: no one is above the law. That evening, as twilight painted the sky purple, 3 women walked arm in arm down a quiet suburban street. Amara's navy trench coat swayed gently, fully repaired like the neighborhood around them. Evelyn hummed an old freedom song. Nia's phone stayed in her pocket. Some moments were just for family. They passed houses with glowing porch lights, heard children playing in backyards, smelled dinners cooking. Normal life returning, stronger for having been defended. At the corner, they paused. This was where it had started. That night, when 3 men thought they'd found an easy target, Amara placed her repaired purse on the familiar railing. "You know what Ghost said to me?" She smiled at her mother and niece. "He said they picked the wrong woman that night." "Ain't that the truth?" Evelyn laughed. "The whole world knows it now," Nia added. Behind them, screen doors creaked open. Neighbors emerged onto porches, voices calling hello. Someone had fired up a grill. The scent of barbecue drifted by. A couple of Pops's veterans gathered on his store steps, sharing stories. Children chased fireflies across fresh-cut lawns. This was what they'd fought for. Not just houses and streets, but home itself. Community. The right to stay rooted where you belong. Amara touched the railing where her purse sat, remembering the fury of that first fight. Now she felt something else. Peace. Deep satisfaction. The knowledge that sometimes justice comes with bruised knuckles and broken nails, but it does come, if you're willing to stand and fight for it. I hope you enjoyed that story. Please share it with your friends, and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one. In the meantime, I have hand-picked 2 stories for you that I think you will enjoy. Have a great day.